we're here at Combatives Summit actually we're sitting in Biloxi, and Iberville, Mississippi is like a half a mile that way, which is where American Top Team is.
Yeah.
I was out here last year. You were out here last year, and you were out here. This is the third annual, so you've been here a couple of years. I missed an opportunity to connect with you last year because, quite frankly, I didn't know a lot about you, and I was trying to make connections with everybody.
Most people don't.
Yeah. Well, so this is the best part about this is because I knew coming into this year, like, there's no way I'm going out to this thing again and not talking to Cliff and getting him on record here. But we just had the opportunity to kind of sit down and have dinner with John, who's John Valentine, who's the mastermind kind of behind putting the whole thing together. And I've learned a little bit about you, and that just has brought up so many other questions that I have for you. So, man, thanks for sitting down with me. I appreciate you.
Oh, it's an honor, man. It's a privilege.
Which actually sounds weird for me to hear you say that, because you have, then there's so much, I think, for people to know. I don't know how many times you've told the story before, but I just love to kind of just get started with ultimately how you found yourself into this.
Yeah.
But I think we got to go back to the beginning, because there's some stuff to talk about here. And I think it lays a lot of context for some of the stuff we're going to talk about. And so you can start and finish wherever you want, but maybe just a little background history. Catch us up.
Yeah, man. Cliff Byerly, former LAPD. That was my police careers with there. Before police, I did 12 years active duty in the Marine Corps predominantly with 1st Recon Battalion. And then I left active duty and did 11 years with 4th Force up in Reno, Nevada. But yeah, it's like I started wrestling when I was 6 years old. And that's where the training kind of started, because like for me, I was a wrestler. I didn't wrestle. So
what does that mean?
So meaning, being a wrestler, it was a year-round thing.
Yep.
Right. It wasn't, I'm going to wrestle, so it wasn't just a season thing. It was a year-round thing. So, even at 6, 7 years old as a Pee Wee wrestler, my dad, he was a SF dude in Vietnam. Like he like, guess what you're doing this summer? You're going up to Iowa to the intense camp. You're going, so that's kind of pushed the training kind of mindset my whole life. And 9 years old, I got into striking arts, which was interesting because we were having a bunch of, I grew up on a dairy farm for the most part, but, a bunch of guys was in the backyard, and one of my neighbors, Mr. Bobby, another Vietnam vet, but he was a national kickboxing champion.
Okay.
And it was like, it was like one of those deals like, here, hold my beer and watch me kick this beer off the top of this stepladder. I'm like, being in the 70s, that was like Bruce Lee shit.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, this is amazing. Like I can't afford, whatever you're doing, but I can cut your grass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, so that's when I got into like the whole boxing and striking arts, and this followed on from there all through school, and then joined them. I turned 18 in boot camp.
Okay.
So went to Paris Island for boot camp, and then top shooter. So I got kind of that pick where I wanted to be stationed. It was a thing, I guess, in the 80s. So I ended up in Camp Pendleton.
Go to California.
Yeah, I had to go to California because I knew going through infantry training school at Camp Lejeune, I didn't want to be cold and wet.
Cold and wet all the whole time.
It's like,
yep.
So I got out to Camp Pendleton and did, like I said, 12 years active duty. My last 2 years was a drill instructor there at Camp Pendleton.
Right.
But so it's like this started LAPD, and luckily, like I was a wrestler, but I was more striker. So luckily, it's like Big John McCarthy was my defensive tactics instructor
at LAPD.
At LAPD
from the UFC, Big John McCarthy.
Yeah. So
I mean, there might be some kids listening to this who don't know who that is. But
yeah. So
he was there at the beginning.
Yeah. So he's the one who brought Hoist in and started the whole like jiu-jitsu for the police.
The Gracie stuff.
Yeah, all the Gracie stuff, and then up at the basically the mat room at the academy. They would have open mats, but they would bring in like legendary dudes like John Moria and people like that, Hoyler, and, just a ton of like very high level jiu-jitsu guys. And that kind of got me going down the path of jiu-jitsu. And I started jiu-jitsu in 99.
Okay, so this is very new then.
Yeah.
Like You guys
So-
were the first ones, I'm sure, doing it at that point from a police agency perspective.
I think so. I mean, I don't. I'm kind of biased, but I think anything good probably starts in LA.
Just they're just a little bit more in front.
Yeah, well, it's one of those deals where, like, because of the area, it's like if you look at, the 90s with, Rodney King and, you got North Hollywood shootout and stuff. Where else is that happening at? You know what I mean? Like, of course, nowadays you got, all the riots in Minneapolis and other areas, but most of this stuff, the trend started in LA.
Yeah, and at least, I mean, I know for me, because I was a kid, right, during all this time, for me, like, it was getting attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because I lived in Northern California in the Bay Area, and we had Oakland, which got a lot of attention.
Oh, yeah.
We actually had, like, East San Jose, where I live, was very active. It just didn't get a lot of attention because you had the big city, Oakland, and then San Francisco is what San Francisco is, but certainly LA got the news coverage, and that's how we got our information, right? We didn't have social media, so you didn't see, crime was always high in Chicago. New York City is a thing. Miami during the 80s and going into the 90s, and it's still a hotbed down there, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, so that said, anything new that you heard about was probably coming out of LA first.
Well, I mean, and if you think about it too, it's like even the TV shows that inspired people my age in the 70s, Adam 12, SWAT. It was LAPD. You know what I mean? That's kind of like, I didn't know anything about it. It's like, I was at Camp Pendleton. I never went to LA on the weekends.
Yeah, talk to me about this actually. So, like, the law enforcement thing, dairy farmer, Dad's got dairy farms, right? I think you told me earlier he worked on oil platforms as well. So very blue collar dude, right? Blue collar family. How does the law enforcement thing even come up? Because, like, you're kind of bouncing around right now, and, like, it just seemed like the right thing to do, or what happened?
Well, for me, it was like, I still have the letter my mom used to keep in her cedar chest, but I think I was 12 years old. And it was all because of the show, like the SWAT TV show, right?
Love that.
I even had, like, the 12-inch action figures, right? They used to go out and arrest the G.I. Joe dolls. You know what I mean? So, like, so I think I was in 7th or 8th grade, and we had to do a, like, project what our life goals were, and I was going to be a Marine, and I was going to be LAPD SWAT.
Okay, so
that was the only two things, and that was my life goals.
Gotcha. All right, so this makes sense. You're just living your dream.
Yeah, I was the only one. I joined the Marine Corps because everybody else in my family was Army.
You're that kid.
Yeah, I was that kid. Typical, teenage boy. And I was going to be a cop. Nobody else in my family has ever been in law enforcement. So
okay. So you go to LAPD, and this is after multiple deployments in the military. You were a drill instructor, top shot. You've done quite a few things at this point.
Yeah.
What's the pipeline getting in for you into the LAPD? I mean, do you do the typical, you got to go to patrol, you do your thing, you earn an invite to a tryout or whatever? How's that go?
So yeah, it's like at the time you could do LA for one, like our years are 13 months, their deployment period. So like every month in LA, the PD starts on a Monday, right? So typical probation is 13 months, but I think 97 was the last year they did it. But after 5 deployment periods, if you weren't a shitbag, you could go to a specialized unit.
Okay.
So me and a buddy of mine who was one class ahead of me, we got pulled in a crash.
Okay.
So we got to work the gang unit. So, but it was interesting because, like, the third Wednesday of your month, you had to put in your days off, you know? So, like, the crash sergeant stops me and this other guy in the hallway, is like, hey, Boot, don't put in your days off. And we're like, shit, are we getting fired? It's like, you're coming to crash, so don't worry about your days off, So that was a really cool experience, especially coming from the military side that I worked as a recon Marine, you know what I mean? So it's like, you're kind of going from like a special operations capable unit to like kind of a higher speed, unit there. And that's where you really learn to do police work. I mean, it was a good time.
Yeah.
In the
What's
90s.
what's it like there during these years?
Dude, it's like, well, in the 90s, it was interesting too, because you had a lot of the training officers who experienced the Rodney King riots.
Okay.
And they were like, oh, you can't do anything anymore. Our hands are so tied.
Right.
And literally, like, my third day out of the academy, I was probably a half a pound of pressure away from shooting a dude. You know what I mean? It's like
Guns already out of the holster.
You know, chasing a dude southbound through Avalon Park with a gun. You know what I mean? Like, this is amazing. Like, what is these old guys talking about?
So for those who maybe aren't familiar with the area, you're talking about like South Central.
Yes,
Los Angeles.
all South Central is where I work.
So this is the stuff that movies are made of.
Yes.
Right? Like when you think about all the cinema that's out there, that's typically where they're like the movie Cops with God, who was it? God, who are those guys? Robert, what's his name? Hell, it's slipping my mind. But Cops, like all the recent ones, like the Gyllenhaal, it's all in.
And The Watch was there.
The Watch, yeah, all that stuff. So literally, the cinema that you had maybe grown up looking at on SWAT on TV,
it's that whole area.
You're right in the middle of it.
Yep.
All right, okay. Busy is what's going on.
Oh yeah, it's crazy busy. I mean, and that's probably one reason why they went from an 8-hour shift to a 12-hour shift, because even a 12-hour shift, you're there 20 hours. You know, if you're doing, and in South Central is one of those areas where you can't be lazy.
Yep.
You know, it's like you can be driving around trying to ignore something, and you look over in the alley and somebody's getting robbed at gunpoint. You know, it's an area where even if you're somewhat proactive, you're making north of 200 felony arrests a year.
Wow.
And with a 12-hour shift, you got to figure too, it's like, I just came up with a department citation, boxing some stuff up at home, but it's like, so a 12-hour shift, I think we work 13 days out of the 28 days of our month. And it's like, you know, citation for making like 28 felony arrests in 13 days. You know, it's like,
and it's everything.
It's every
drugs.
day.
It's
drugs, money, guns, stolen cars. You know, it's like, you know, parolees at large. You know, it's the gamut, and you just never know. You know, it's like every day might be the day that chooses you to be in a shooting, or you know, it's rare to go a whole week and not get in a use of force.
Yeah, so let's talk about the use of force stuff. So, I mean, something you're familiar with at this point, not as a police officer, just, you know, from the game of life, but also all the training you've done. Like, is this stuff showing up for you pretty regularly? It sounds like it is. I mean, if you're getting into use of force every day.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's one of those deals too, where like working the projects, you know, because jiu-jitsu is such a big thing now. You know, like working the projects, like the ground was the last thing you wanted to be on. You know, you learn how to use, you know, walls and cars to arrest people. You know, it's like, it's one of those deals, like you work with a partner, like, you know, it's like I would tell my partner, like, you know, I'll be hands-on, you just make sure I don't get shot in the back.
Oh, interesting.
You know what I mean? It's like, it didn't require two people. Like, if I need your help, I'll tell you. You know, it's like, in a lot of the arrests and the projects, they look more like kidnappings than arrests, because
you're trying to get out of there.
You're trying to get out of there. I forget what year it was. I want to say it was 2005, but they actually put gang injunctions in it. Like, we had 5 housing projects, but 3 major ones, and they actually put injunctions, like restraining orders against, like, countless gang members, where they couldn't be in groups of 3 or more.
Wow.
Because you go to like Nickerson Gardens, which is a very large housing, Jordan Downs, like you and your partner would get in a foot pursuit with somebody with a gun, and 50 of his friends would be chasing you and your partner.
Coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not pulling guard, bro. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, you know, but it's like nowadays, like a lot of people, they're so into jiu-jitsu, they're willing to risk injury, you know, so the bad guy can safely resist. You know what I mean? Some people need to be punched in the mouth.
I don't disagree with that. And I think the interesting part about that is so you're talking about the 90s, right? And like how different is that from now in terms of the crimes that are happening and the severity of the crimes? Is it, I mean, you're not in that game anymore, but you work with those people regularly. Is it the same? Is it different? Is it worse? Is it better? Like what can you tell me?
I think the game is the same. You know, crime is crime. Criminals are going to be criminals. But I think the mindset is different. You know, because a lot of the people coming on the job nowadays, they don't grow up playing contact sports.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like going home and sitting on the Xbox or whatever it is. So it's like you're getting a lot of kids like, God, I've taught classes around the country, and it's just like, you talk about doing a scenario. I've had 25-year-old SWAT dudes going like, oh, I've never been punched in the face.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like, how did you make it this far in your career, much less growing up as a male and never been punched in the face?
I don't exactly know the answer to that question, so that's going to be a question I'm going to have for you, right? Like, I mean, what do you think that is? Like, why is that? Is it because we are violence averse? Is it because we helicopter this younger generation in the way we have?
Yeah.
We don't allow the bullying to happen, which ultimately for the boys tends to turn into a slugging match in which it's over fairly quickly and we move on. Like, what is it?
Well, you know, from raising a son who's, you know, I've been called to the office several times because I tell him to punch people, you know, so is his mom. His mom grew up as a competitive kickboxer, you know, so both of us like to fight. So that was his parents. But it's like from day one in school, you know, violence is bad. It's not tolerated, you know, and I think it's that whole mindset. But like in the 70s, I had teachers that kept boxing gloves in their desks. You know, it's like, knock that shit off. You'll handle it at recess.
Yeah, you guys need to get the energy out. Go ahead and do it. Here's some gloves. We'll keep it relatively safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, my kid was going to school. It was like, oh, no, you know, you can't do that. And it's like when we moved to Texas, and I told him it was going to happen. His first day of freshman year, or first week of freshman year, like the, you know, high school football star was saying all the things that I told him. Is, you know, the campus is covered by high def video. I still have the video somewhere. It's amazing because my son started training like when he could walk.
Okay.
So this, you know, the superstar is so funny because my son is like stops, puts his sunglasses on the back of his head. And as soon as this kid looks back to make sure his buddies are filming, my son punches him in the throat. Mm-hmm. Rear double leg, rear naked choke, puts him to sleep, puts his sunglasses on, walks to class.
Like he'd done it 100 times.
Yeah, because he probably has, but it's like...
Versus the kid who got punched had never been punched in the face before.
Yeah, but it's like we get called into the office and they show me the video and they start talking about like expulsion. And so I break down the video like pre-assault cues. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you're lucky the kid takes after his mom. Because like when I was growing up, I would have kept stomping his head in the ground till a teacher broke it up. You know, it's like, that's how we used to, that's farm kids, you know, it's like, but it's like, my wife's just sitting there shaking her head going like, oh my God, just shut up. But literally I'm breaking down pre-assault cues. Like, look, he's blading, you know, see the stance, weight shift. And the principal's looking at me like, what are you talking about?
They have no clue.
Yeah. I'm like, my son isn't going to get hit first.
Right.
Because I can show you a lot of videos where guys get knocked out, they bounce off the concrete, now they're paralyzed or dead. Mm-hmm. You know, the principal's like, okay, I'll tell you what, Mr. Byerly, we're just going to give him 5 days of detention. And the other kids is the one that actually got kicked out of school for starting it.
Okay, which is how it should go.
Yeah.
Right? Which is how it should go. All right, there has to be some level of consequence for, we can't, you know, for fighting happening on campus. I get it, but like expelling a kid for defending himself, right? At what point do words... you know, they stop working and we have to do something. So going back to the 25-year-old SWAT guy who's never been punched in the face before, what is it? Is the consequences changed for the younger kids or they were just simply never exposed to any of it?
I really think for my ones I've talked to, they've never been exposed to it because it's always been taboo.
Yeah. Versus the people that they're dealing with in the street that have been maybe not trained, but they've been dealing with this in the street.
Because that's how you get respect.
Because that's how you get respect. And now they need, and we expect our police officers to have respect, but they don't know what that even means. They don't know how to handle themselves in those situations.
Well, if you look at it too, for the most part, the people coming to work South LA, they grew up in middle class suburbia. They have no clue. So it's like such a shock to the system. You know, it's like they've never had anybody just like get up in their face before. You know, because like in the 70s, like, you know, your dad used to take like when your mom said, wait till your dad got home, it meant something.
Oh, yeah, that's what it meant for me.
Yeah, you know, you're getting the belt, you know what I mean? But now it's like, oh, you know, you can't spank your kid, you know what I mean? So like having somebody get up in their face, you know, is like a shock to their system. You know, because like in the projects, we'd arrest 11-year-olds for doing armed robberies at 11 years old,
So
12 years
wild,
old.
so wild.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds almost ridiculous that would be a true statement, but the reality of it is it is a true statement, and that just goes back to what we were talking about. Like they grew up in an entirely different environment, so now we have an institution that's supposed to be enforcing law and order, right? And they don't know how to deal with the lawlessness, and they've never seen anything like it before. And I don't mean to beat this up. But I hear this a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I hear people kind of skirting around the issue. And I don't want to like make fun of 25-year-old SWAT cops, and that's not everybody. For sure, it's not everybody. It's definitely not, because I'm in a unique position where I get to talk to a lot of them from the outside looking in. It's just not the case. But I think when you do talk to them, they would say that is the majority of what the quote unquote, without the risk of sounding like an old crusty guy, the younger generation is having, they're faced with, right? And they're coming in and dealing with this. So again, I think my bringing that up and kind of going down that path with you is just it's the reality of where we are, right? And the question always comes, like, how do we change this? Is it being like, you're being very honest up front and, you know, unreserved with the things that you're saying. And I know that you don't care. Like it's like, it probably would hurt you more not to say that than it does to say it, I guess maybe is the simple way to say it. But we're skirting around this issue of, look, we don't want everybody to be violent all the time, but if you don't know what violence looks like, right? Like, where's the in between, and when you go to something like use of force, at what point, what is that? What does that mean? Right? Yeah.
Well, and the thing of this too is like, now the cool buzzword is like de-escalation, right?
I love that word.
You know, but de-escalation isn't a tactic; it's a goal. You know what I mean? So it's just like Austin PD is like, because of some data, it's like, it's so funny because they didn't even look at their own article, because the policies they put into effect is like created more like use of force issues. But they want people to talk more. But it's just like, you already said it's your policy that's creating the problem. So why don't you change your policy instead of putting more, you know, emphasis on the officer? Because
so let me flip the script here. So let's say they do change the policy. What needs to happen? Because I think that's where the gap lies. Like, the policy was likely changed for two reasons. One, because use of force was starting to come up, and again, maybe because those that would choose to not be arrested, right, and don't want to go to jail, have been maybe emboldened now and they've seen that I can do this and kind of get away with it, and ultimately policies change. But then you have the officers that, why did that happen in the first place would be my question. Is like, well, our use of force is going up, more people are getting hurt, less people are going to jail. So we have this kind of, it's conflicted, right? And so we change a policy that creates this situation. So let's say they change the policy back. Does that fix the problem?
I don't think so, because the support still won't be there.
Okay.
You know, because like in LA, if you were a proactive cop and you were doing your job, right, you were chasing people with dope and guns, whatever it was, your file would leave your station and end up downtown at risk management.
Yeah, somebody's looking at you, flagged.
Yeah. So now it's not like, hey, good job. It's like, oh, you're a problem. You know, so that's like the big thing that needs to be changed is like, you know, you haven't done anything wrong. You should be awarded for being the go-getter, but no, you're going to end up at the risk management file because, you know, you got in 3 vehicle pursuits in 1 week. Like, well, I can't help being behind stolen cars. It's LA.
What do you want me to do here? Which goes back to now you're in a potential situation, again, going back to like this policy you're talking about, not knowing what to do or being afraid to do it, creates that hesitation, right? And that hesitation creates time. And that time that's created there creates a problem, or it's going to go one of two ways, and it's going to go again. We always hear this. The other dude has a vote in this, right?
100%.
And the longer you let him think about that, doesn't necessarily make it better. And I think that's where we've gone wrong. Is if we just talk to him a little bit more, we can calm them down, quote unquote.
Yep.
I use this in air quotes, de-escalation.
Yep.
When in reality, you're just giving this guy more time, or this person more time, suspect more time to do whatever it is he has already decided he's going to do in the first place. And then it turns into a melee, and then you have, 3 or 4 people piling on, and none of them quite knows what to do. They're all fighting one another and whatever. So that was my question, is like, well, what needs to change? So I don't want to get too far into that and revisit, conversations that are continually being had, but you have a unique perspective on this, because of the work that you did, how you did it, and what you're continuing to do now. So I want to kind of move forward in this. Like, what are you seeing happening in the agencies, in the places that you do go? Is it, what's going on out there in the world, particularly with law enforcement, from your perspective?
I think the training, it depends on the agency and the area.
Okay, so there's 2 big things. And so when we talk about the agency, we're talking about the area. So for me, what that sounds like is it really maybe first depends on the area, because that's going to influence how the agency does things. Is that okay?
But it also influences the mindset of cops too. So like, if the training culture up in the DFW, Metroplex, Dallas-Fort Worth area is night and day compared to where I'm at in the Hill Country.
Okay.
And I think, like, if I book a class up in the Metroplex area, it'll sell out in a couple of days. Down by me, you might get 5 or 10 guys. And it's just because of nothing happens.
Got it.
Until it does.
Right. So the frequency of things just is way less. So the urgency to get training, or the feeling of I need this or we need this training, is just not there until something happens.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, I've never needed that. And it's like, yet. You know what I mean? It's like I tell people too, it's like when I was doing the field training officer thing, you'd have kids getting a use of force, and you'd ask them like, okay, so what if he did this? Because like guys that don't train, they look at coming out like on top as a win.
What does that mean? Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, the only reason you got that guy in custody is because he quit before you did, because there's your job, right? He gives it the, old college try to get away so he could smoke crack one more time, but he fails, right? So he quit before you did, before the cop did, and basically you both suck. He just sucked a little bit more. So are you going to train like, but what if he would have done this? Then what was your answer? Well, I don't know. Like, so are you going to train for like a solution to that? So basically train for your next fight, or are you just going to chalk that up to a win is good enough?
Yeah.
And most people just like, even though it's hope is their game plan. It's like, well, I've never needed that, and I've always got them in custody. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like they're relying on hope and luck instead of planning and training for their next fight.
Yeah, maybe I look at this as this way when I hear you say that. That's really good. I guess I never really looked at it, the hope factor. And it's like you're hoping it doesn't, or you're hoping when it does, you're ready for it. There's 2 ways of looking at it, right? And so these agents, like you mentioned, like DFW, Metroplex areas, like they know it's coming, and they want to be, or they're hoping they're going to be ready for it when they're tested. That's a different mentality. I guess I hadn't really thought about that. So good enough is until it isn't, and somebody else is deciding that for you. You don't get, you're not deciding that for yourself.
Well, the other thing too is like coming from an agency where you always work with a partner.
Yep.
That was the other problem. That was the other excuse. I don't need to train.
Because it's a 2-man car.
It's a 2-man car. My buddy will just hit the help button, and backup's only a minute or 2 away.
Well, now I hear people saying I'm nervous if I have to call for backup. I'm the guy who trains, right? I'm the guy who is
100%.
Hoping I'm ready, and I'm doing what I can to make sure that I'm ready when that time happens, knowing that there's no end to this. Like I need to continually train, and there's all sorts of things I need to be prepared for. And having to call for backup, and hearing on the radio who's coming, you're like, never mind.
Yeah.
Don't even
cancel it.
Yeah, I hear that quite a bit. So,
well, I mean, it's like I've told people, I still tell people that I used to work with, like, yeah, you're in a car with somebody else, but you both suck. You're just going to create a bigger shit show.
Somebody else is going to have to come rescue you.
Yeah. You know, it's like you're just going to create more paperwork for whoever the sergeant is.
Yeah. Okay. So without completely like just shitting on law enforcement and training or whatever. So let's talk about the places that are doing a good job with this that you're going to. What are they doing? So first off, I heard you say like it's the area, frequency. There's an urgency to get this done because they are getting in incidents. I'm wondering how that's panning out for them though, with the additional training, like from a metrics perspective, and how are we measuring the wins versus the losses? What are they doing differently, if anything? I
know some of the better agencies I work with, like if you want to go to training, the department will pay for it. It could be jiu-jitsu, it could be college, it could be Gold's Gym. I mean, they will pay for whatever training. There's like 2 guys from Grapevine here that got their slots paid for. And this summit isn't cheap, you know, but it's like, you know, it's like if you ask for it, here you can go, you know. So it's getting the admin behind the training. You know what I mean? That's the big thing. Like I forget what agency is. I think he used to work at Round Rock. Now he's Williamson County, I think. He used to be a chief. I'm sure you met him at TTP.
The Unicorn Chief, that's Brian Williams.
Yeah, Brian, exactly. Yep. But I mean, he's a grandmaster shooter, right? Yep. He can, you know, so when he goes out to the range and shoot with the SWAT guys, and who's not going to go to a match that weekend?
Right.
You're not going to have Chief showing you up.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, but it's one of those deals. Like, but if the example has to be set by higher, you know, and if they're not going to set the example, they at least have to encourage you to go.
Right. Right. Through either monetary or provide the resource somehow, right?
Somehow.
Or get you some leadership at that level that can encourage you and support you in that endeavor.
And that's what the good agencies that I work with that I'm seeing. It's like, oh, you want to go? Here's a check.
How is the training changing? Like just with regard to specifically, like there's shooting, right? There's fighting, there's arrest and control, or probably what should be ordered control and then arrest, right? Are things changing, like in those agencies? How have they changed things, I guess is my question.
Oh, I think what I see, they're putting like most of your emphasis is on grappling, right? Because like, you know, the data shows that there's less injuries to cops and bad guys, right? Like, you know, I don't really know about that, but it's like, but a lot of the training is like, they're trying to be non-violent in a violent world is what I'm seeing. You know, it's like
tools.
Yeah, it's so tool dependent. I mean, it's like that whole taser I refer to as a magic Sparky thing. You know,
sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
I mean, they have like a 48, 49% fail rate.
I've heard different percentages, but let's just be honest, it's not great.
But the thing of it is, like the taser, I know when I went to the academy, we didn't have the cool X26 in the 90s. We had like this goofy flashlight looking thing, but it worked on everybody in the academy.
Yeah, right. When everybody's standing there.
Yeah. You know,
in a t-shirt.
Yeah, you can't wait to get out and taser somebody, and then you get the first naked guy walking down, you know, Imperial Highway punching out car windows on PCP, and you taser him. He's just looking at you like, you know, it's a tic tac. You know, it's like okay, this is BS. You know.
Yeah, so I would figure again, like I think if I'm an officer that's going in, like this is going to work for me. I'm hoping this is going to work for me, and that doesn't. I would think that would change my attitude about things.
Well, the thing
but it doesn't seem to be.
Well, the thing is, there's no bullying. And there's no after actions. I was talking to a kid who got in a shooting. He shot and killed a domestic violence suspect. But he went back to work, and he was expecting to do a debrief, and nobody wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, I hear this too.
You know, but it's just like, there's no bullying. You know, it's like... one of my kids, he's still like one of my best friends. He comes out and visits me all the time. But I was the FTO in the dope unit. He comes into the dope unit because you used to come in on a 6-month loan, and then after 6 months, we'll decide if we want to keep you or not.
Okay.
So he comes in and he's told like, hey, Officer Byerly is going to be your FTO. And he comes over and he starts to introduce himself. And I'm like, I don't care who you are. You're a fat ass. You got 30 days to lose 30 pounds.
To get in shape.
And literally the next day, he was at the CrossFit gym that I used to coach at 7 a.m. And he's getting in now after all these years. I think that was like 08. But now he's getting ready to get his jiu-jitsu black belt. And he's one of the few people to get a Muay Thai black belt from Rafael Cordova. But I mean, it's like he took it to heart. And then, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, he calls me. He was like, dude, it's a good thing you're an asshole to me and made me get in shape because I have a genetic heart condition.
Did he?
And I would have died.
You didn't know about it maybe before?
Because he found out he was having some kind of issues. And they're like, yeah, dude, if you didn't lose, the 50 pounds you lost and got in shape, you would be dead right now. Yeah. So, but that's the kind of bullying, like in the recon community, like you earn your spot every day. Law enforcement should be that way.
Yeah, it's a performance-based business.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a high-calorie individual, I've never had a problem telling you you're a fat ass. Like I can't work with you because,
you're a liability.
You're a liability. Like right. I like chasing people and you're not going to be able to keep up.
Yeah, but that hurts feelings, man. Or the other part of that is what you just described. Yep. And I think that's what gets lost in this. So for me, my little story goes, people ask me because I'm in the fitness business, how did I get into this? Well, first off, fitness was always a part of my life, even as a little kid. And it was play first, right? You play soccer, you play baseball or whatever. Then it turns into more sport in terms of, a competition. And so that maybe starts to become a little bit more important to you. Not every kid's going to like that, or whatever. But I tell you what I didn't like. I didn't like when I got to junior high, at the time we had the presidential physical fitness testing, right?
I still got the patch.
Right? Well, the first go around in sixth grade, sixth grade, I don't think I was a little fat kid, right? Like it was I was just a late bloomer. Like I wasn't fat. I was soft, right? But I could play sports, but I wasn't very strong, and I was a little uncoordinated, and I was kind of late coming on. In seventh grade, I made us do the physical fitness test, and I remember like really caring about it then, and I wasn't the worst, right? It didn't bother me very much. Like, I was just like, okay, I got through that, kind of thing. I'm still playing soccer. I'm still playing baseball, those kind of things. So, and I could do that, and I could do that fairly well. I'd say I was average, right, at best. I certainly wasn't the best kid, and the best kids were way better. They were running the mile way faster and whatever else. But I was just okay not being last or, at least middle of the pack. Well, eighth grade came around. In this particular class, what they did is they had the girls' team or the girls' PE class and all their coaches for that hour, and then they had the boys' PE class with the coaches for them, and they took us out to the pull-up bar for the pull-ups, and we were all standing in line, and I got up on that pull-up bar, and a girl got on the bar next to me. She did like 4 pull-ups, and I couldn't get my chin over that bar, and I was embarrassed. And it didn't take somebody else bullying me. Yeah. Like for me, it was like, this is not okay. Yeah. Right. Like, and I bullied myself. Well, by the time I got to be a freshman, as the story goes, we had this vacant lot where the power lines ran through it across the street from my folks' house. It was owned by PG&E, the electric company. Right. And they turned it into a park, and they put in one of those little park course things. Yeah. Well, they put the pull-up bar right across the street from the house. Yeah. Right. It was like, timing was perfect. Yeah. And I went over there. By the time I got to be a freshman, nobody could do more pull-ups than me. Right. Like I just went out to that bar and I pulled up because I was like, this is not going to happen again. Yeah. So intrinsically, I was motivated to do that. And what I got from that was, look, if you're consistent with something and you really want to get this done, you have to put in work and whatever. And my body was changing and I was getting stronger, and I loved the way that felt, and I had more confidence. It was showing up for me. Right. In the sports that I was playing, it was showing up on me physically. I was certainly growing, and all that stuff was happening at the same time. But that motivated me. Right. And then I was basically bit by the bug, and it just becomes a lifestyle. Right. Yeah, it's like, this is just what I do. Yeah. The point being is I didn't have to be bullied, but I did have this intrinsic drive to I don't want to ever feel like that again. Yep. And there was no hope. There was no hoping for me. Yeah. There was I am doing this. Right. There's a drive to get it done. And again, maybe a lame little story, but it really was kind of the start of everything for me. And I just look at everything like that. Look, if you need to get something, this needs to change. You have to change it. And my mom didn't need to say anything to me. My dad didn't need to say anything to me. They were always very supportive. Yeah. I didn't have any friends that were bullying me or whatever. But when I finally got to that level where I had coaches, and we were now it's competitive. Now you're in high school, you're playing football or whatever, and you're getting your ass kicked. As a freshman, getting my ass kicked by, they were sophomores, but to me they look like grown men. Right? Again, I was still a little bit of a late bloomer, and the coaches are yelling at kids, and you were getting bullied every single day, and that motivated me. And it was, in a sense, it was healthy, right, for me. I get where some kids might not get that, but to that very point, it's like, well, then this isn't the right place for you to be, because this is how we operate here. It wasn't inclusive. It wasn't. It was, there's a little bit of an elitism here. You can either handle the pressure or you can't handle the pressure. And that seems to be what's changed. It's like, well, anybody can do this job.
Well, it's like they say, words inspire, they're strong, intimidate the weak. That's why there's no bullying. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you can't hurt their feelings. Like, that's the craziest thing. And like somebody posted a meme the other day, like talking about police standards. They lowered the standards so everybody can do the job that everybody shouldn't be doing. You know what I mean? It's like, but that's one reason why I've always hated the term standards, because what you see in police work, the majority of people, once they meet the standards, I'm good. They never want to see what's possible. It's like, it's like you'll never see them like in a competitive pistol class, right? The coming out of the academy is usually the best they'll ever shoot.
It's the best physical fitness they'll ever have, typically, too.
Yeah, because it's like I've seen classmates 3-4 years down the road, you don't even recognize them, because they're such high calorie individuals. It's just a straight food blister walking around the range. It's like, come on, dude. Like, it's like I was up at the range years ago, and some female voice calling my name, and she was like the cutest girl in my class, and I didn't even recognize her. She's like, oh, I got married, had 3 kids. I'm like thinking, like, did you eat them? Like, it's just like, holy crap, but it's like, that's the standard, It's like one of my classmates, he was a former Marine from Camp Pendleton, and a very like high level competitive powerlifter. And I seen him, and I'm like, bro, you're gonna have a heart attack if you don't lose weight. And sure enough, like he died like 3 or 4 years ago at like 52.
Yeah, that's so. I think that is the consequence, right, of this. So maybe there's the consequence of you being a liability to the people that you work with, or to even a suspect, right? Getting into something where they get hurt because you can't handle business the way it needs to be handled, and you make poor decisions, or something else happens, it escalates, right? Whatever the case is. There's also the implication of like the longevity piece, right? I mean, how long were you a cop for?
20 years.
Yeah, right. And how much of that was done?
All South Central.
Yeah, in the gang unit, right? You can't get there. You can't do that job without being, number one, being fit, right? Yeah. You have to have like a healthy sense of your ego, right? Which is important. You need to know how to cultivate that and manage it. And having some is good, right? Yeah. It drives things. But there's also the physical piece, right? There's the mental piece that goes into this. And then there's a reality and how that all comes together in the end. And I think that's certainly been lost. Like, how long do you reasonably expect to be able to do this? And I think that's another missing piece is, you play the SWAT action figures were, were rescuing or battling the G.I. Joe action figures. Yeah. This was inside of you for a very long time, right? But for a lot of what I'm seeing in law enforcement, this is what bugs me as a citizen, is it looks like a very part-time job. It's like I've decided to try this for now.
It's a hobby.
Yeah, which then trickles over into the training thing, which we'll get into. But yeah, it's like we'll see how this works out for me. Yep. I got to be honest. As Joe Citizen, if I have to, or if my mom has to, or my daughter has to call the police, I don't want the guy that's showing up with the part-time mindset. Yeah. Like I'm here to see how this works out for me. Well, what if this is the time where you have to decide whether it does or doesn't work out for you? Like, there's liability there, man.
But I mean, even in the 90s, so it's not a new thing, because even in the 90s, like towards the end of the academy, they'd ask you like, hey, what do you see yourself doing in 10 years? Okay. And there was at least 2 classmates that I can think of that, because LAPD was hiring like mad in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Like I think we started off with like 110 people in my class. We graduated with like 50 or something. But anyway, it's like there was several people and there was like, yeah, this is how I plan to pay my college off.
Even then.
So it's not like something new.
Okay, good. I'm glad you said that, because I've heard this too. Like, hey, look, if we go back 20 years, it was the same percentage of people. We just have less of them. Yeah. Right. And and obviously policies and administrations are a bit different maybe than they are. That has changed for sure in terms of in terms of policing and what we have, community policing, proactive policing, whatever terms you want to use out there versus whatever the terms are. I can't keep up with them, man. It's whatever the soundbite is for the week, right? The flavor of the week is, but that seems to have certainly changed. It's not necessarily the people, but it's how those people get processed, right? And how they go through a training process, right? And now we talk about tools, layering a bunch of stuff on versus what you got, which was, again, you're on the jiu-jitsu match, which is very new. It's very novel at the time. Like we said, LA is probably doing it first. You know, maybe there's some other agencies out there that are doing it that are just not made the map yet or whatever, but they're doing that. And now, like, that's available to everybody, but how many people are actually, when I don't mean like your agency's providing it. I just mean it's there. Like, it's, if you don't know about jiu-jitsu, you've been living under a fucking rock. Like, everybody knows what that is now. My mother, who's 77 years old 2 days ago or whatever, knows what that is, right? She knows what the UFC is, right? She doesn't like it. That's what I can tell you about it. Like, but at the same time, she knows what it is. My point being is it's available and it's very accessible. You can't go to a town in this country and not find a school. I'm not saying it's a great one. There's not a place in this country.
There's a garage gym everywhere.
Somewhere, which is where most of the great stuff ends up actually getting started. So going into that, like, I just like going back to your experience, right? Striking, grappling, wrestling, then with the jiu-jitsu and kind of pulling all those pieces together. What were you learning on the street in the gang unit about how all that stuff actually worked out for you in real time?
Well, you know, it's just being confident, right? So like, if you're confident, like, you can talk to people. Like, there's no, like, you actually have civil conversations with people. You know what I mean? It's just like, but there's times, granted, we didn't have cameras back then, but there's times like, dude, if you want to fight, we can fight. I like to fight, you know? And they're just like, look at you like you're crazy. And like,
now they have to think about it.
Yeah. Right? And it's like, oh no, I'm cool. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, back then we used to tell people like, dude, you're getting arrested.
You're going to jail today.
You're going to jail. You can ride in a police car in the back of the ambulance. It's your choice. But, you know, but they know that you're serious. You know what I mean? It's like, but they could also tell the people who are just like, you know, intimidated just by being there.
I had that conversation today actually with Dustin Mowry, who's out here and was an FTO, and he basically put his new guy to the test in terms of dealing with a particular situation. The kid froze, like didn't know what to do. And so he had to step in and very quickly established his level of, you know, authority and or dominance through words, right? But more through demeanor. And I think that was what I was taking away from it. Is just he had a level of confidence, like, if this goes sideways, I'll go. Like, it's fine. And the guy immediately picked up on that. But it was also met with like, look, man, it doesn't have to be like this. Like, this is a new guy. I'm training him, whatever. Like, look, here's what's going on today. But also knowing if that guy doesn't want to have this conversation, I'm fine with that. Like, this, if that's the way it's going to go, it's going to go today. I've been here before. But the kid had never been punched in the face before, and that was the limiting factor.
Well, see, I think part of the problem too, and this goes back for who knows how many years, but like, if you look at the use of force scale, right? The first thing on that scale is presence. And they used to tell you like, oh, it's about being squared away uniform and this and that. Well, I showed up on a boatload of scenes, and what was happening didn't stop because I showed up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's what's inside that uniform, man.
You know, it's like I physically had to do something, you know, but a lot of people, you know, they don't have the capability to back up, you know, the presence, right? There's like, yeah, you're there, but they're not bringing capability with them. And what I've seen a lot too is like during my careers, there's always more people to make excuses for a shit show than to go like, look, dude, you know, you suck. You know what I mean? And it's like, I was always the asshole that in roll call going, everybody be like, oh, it's such a good job. And I'd be like, dude, you suck. Like, you know, you should give up golf and like come to open mat that I'm teaching on Saturday. Like, you suck. Like, you know, you got beat up by a 13-year-old gangster girl. Like, you know, but everybody would make excuses, you know, it's like, and it's still that way today. I talk to guys, it's just like, you know, they'll send me a video and it's like, everybody's making excuses for their dude.
So that's the second time you said this. And what I mean by that is like, it really is. There's not a lot of difference in that right now. But obviously there's a lot more publicity around some of the things we're seeing because of body-worn cameras, obviously 100%. Social media, like the speed at which news travels and whatnot. And so going back to the training piece, right? And kind of what you're doing and how you're doing it. So a lot of experiences, let's just say a lot of hands-on experience, right? And so this trickles over into starting your own company, right? When does that appear? Like, is this while you're working with LAPD or after?
God, I've been kind of teaching people going back to 93.
Okay.
So, like, I started a training company. I think of the first one I started was like 2004 timeframe. And then when I retired and moved to Texas, I started one there. But it's like, I've always been into like, hey, let's just get together, put in a mouthpiece and see what works.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like, I've always that's just been my mindset. Like if I go to arrest somebody and something didn't work like it should, it's like I had a couple really good training partners. I'd go to the MMA gym the next day and be like, hey, I had this happen last night. And we just put on mouthpieces and just like,
let's figure it out.
Yeah, let's just work it out. But you really don't see that much, or hear about that much anymore because it's why bother when somebody's going to make an excuse for me?
There you go.
It's like, there's no, like I said earlier, there's no earning the spot. It's like, it's an attaboy. It's like nowadays, like, I don't know what year because I was gone, but like LAPDs came out with a medal now for not shooting people. It's like they just had a big award thing for like, this guy was like pointing guns at people, but they talked him down. Like, so you're awarding people for risking their life when they should like escalate. You know what I mean? It's like, but they're allowing to like basically awarding people to be like not do their job.
Passive.
Yeah, be passive aggressive.
That's a tough one for me, man. I mean, I could see where this goes awry. Like, but that's optics. Yeah. That's what that is.
It's all about optics. Yeah.
That's a very low metric for deciding what success is.
Yeah.
Again, to going back to your point, like you won today, but you still suck.
Yeah.
Right. And now the person's walking around with a ribbon on their chest or whatever the citation or the medal or the award is, and walking around now with a false sense of confidence. This is how we handle problems.
Yep.
Until the guy that has the gun who's waving it around at people decides he's not going to put it down and it's going to go a different direction. And now we have a whole nother box of shit that we have to deal with that we may not be prepared for lack of a better term.
Well, the thing about being at a big agency, though, a lot of the people who were pretty much worthless, there was so many places they could go hide. You know what I mean? It's like we had one guy, he actually got knocked out by a female crack whore, which was another funny story. But like he ended up going to LAX, working at the airport. It's just like... So
we just move the problem.
They just move the problem around.
It's less likely that it'll get into something like that there, so we'll just put him there.
Yeah, we're just going to move him over. But you saw that a lot. It's like you got... I got in a vehicle pursuit, I think it was like 97, 98, and it was so like very high speed vehicle pursuit anyway. But it's like my partner, like he in roll call, like he has to take off because like he said it claimed like PTSD from the vehicle pursuit. And he ended up spending his entire career as a DARE officer.
After that?
Yeah, because it was so traumatizing to be in a high speed vehicle pursuit.
So... Okay, so maybe there are positions that those people should be in, right? But maybe they should have been there in the first place.
Yeah.
So you're saying we're made an excuse for this guy, and so now we need to find a place to put him.
Yeah,
right?
But a lot of departments don't have those places.
So they just go back to the...
They either promote or they go right back to patrol.
That's an interesting problem.
Yeah.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so... Jeez. Okay, let's on the training side of things. So we're here at Combatives Summit.
Yep.
What are you teaching this week?
Well, I just got done this evening doing it's an extra block. It's after hours. the cops there, there's probably about 15 cops tonight. We worked vehicle extractions. But my actual block is going to be Sunday morning, and it's all catch wrestling, but it's going to be takedowns, upper body control for a weapons-based environment.
Okay, so for those who may not understand the vernacular there, explain catch wrestling.
So catch wrestling is, well, they say jiu-jitsu is like the gentle art. Catch wrestling is like the asshole grappling art.
Okay. Go on.
But yeah, so they have, catch wrestling has rules that they allow stuff that's not allowed in jiu-jitsu. But it also, it's basically submission wrestling is what it is. Okay. But to me, catch wrestling and the rule set crosses over to law enforcement far better than jiu-jitsu, because it focuses on takedowns, pins, rides, stuff that you use to get people under control in handcuffs. So
this goes back to being on the ground is not a good idea.
Yeah.
So if you're getting into the clinch, or if you're getting into a wrestling, quote unquote, wrestling match with somebody, jiu-jitsu, if it's being the gentle art, like, it's going to provide you some level of tools to do things. But
here's the difference to me, how I explain it to people. Jiu-jitsu versus catch wrestling. The hierarchy of positions in jiu-jitsu is based on points, right? So if you look at mount, it's like 4 points, right? Back control, 4 points, whatever. But mount is one of your most dangerous positions to be in as a cop, right? They can like hug you up. I mean, they could tie you up. Has to be like, mount has to be like a transitory position.
Okay.
Right. So like, a lot of people, you'll see people that are good at jiu-jitsu that are also cops, they'll give up dominant positions for the hierarchy of positions, right? They're so used to like, oh, I don't want to stay in side control. I got to switch them out.
I got to get them on their belly.
Yeah, you got to do something, right? So
they're prone.
Yeah, so they're so focused on like positions based on points, where in catch wrestling, it's like you're looking for pins before submissions, right? So the rule set is totally different. And to me, that's how it crosses over to law enforcement better, just because of the hierarchy of points, if that makes sense.
No, I think it makes sense. No, it makes perfect sense to me. That's why I wanted to go through the explanation, because I don't know that it did.
Yeah.
I was actually listening to Mikey Sanford talk about this today, right? Yeah. Even in teaching in his section that you were in as well. And he was talking about the mindset shift there, and how, while jiu-jitsu is great for a lot of things, if you're going into it to the mindset of what you just explained, he didn't explain it that way. He explained it a little bit differently. It can become a problem, right? And when we go to like, why are we trying to? You mentioned like a transitory type of situation. The goal is control so that we can arrest this person. And what I kind of hear you saying is, like, while you have some level of control with jiu-jitsu, you wind up invariably giving it up at some point. You're going to have to give it up at some point in order to get them in the position you need to get them into to ultimately get the cuffs on. Am I correct?
Yeah, and that's what you see a lot, though. But it's like, I tell people too, like, in my career, I've never used jiu-jitsu to arrest anybody, but I grappled pretty much every day. And it's all basic wrestling. And granted, not every town has a wrestling program, but a lot of jiu-jitsu schools don't. You know, it's like, I've been to a ton of schools around the country where every roll starts from the mat. Like, you're basically both sitting down on your knees.
Right.
Right. It's like, I know legit BJJ black belts that could probably struggle teaching you like a legit takedown.
Right. Because we're moving to or working from the guard.
They're so used to this pulling guard or whatever their sport game is. Right. So like, but
because that's what you're rewarded for in that
that's
sport.
what your points hierarchy, right? But it's like, in controlling people, it's wrestling. You know, it's pens, it's stapling body parts with your body parts and stuff like that. You know, it's tying up limbs. It's not like, you know, you're not trying to hit a berimbolo in the street. That's for sure, you know. So I think like, but you know, a lot of people like, they get really upset when I say that, but it's like, I've never used anything I learned in jiu-jitsu class to arrest somebody. It's all from like 6-year-old wrestling class, and it's like people don't understand that, but it's like it's simple like arm drags and body locks to sweeps or whatever it is. But
so I think what if I'm sitting on the other end of this right now and I'm listening to but Cliff, I do that in jiu-jitsu all the time. What I don't understand, like what it sounds like is semantics.
Yeah.
How do you break that?
Well, grappling, I tell people too, it's like grappling is grappling. It's just the rule sets that's different.
Okay. All right.
So if you don't train, like a lot of people, like I've talked to a lot of kids in jiu-jitsu, and I mentioned Eric Paulson. He was like one of the guys who got me into catch wrestling. And people are like, who's that?
I know who that is.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, but that's like saying who's Hickson.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Got you.
But it's like, if you don't like people, they tend to like gravitate towards what their hobby is. Right. But it's like, how many, like I've done years of judo, sambo, catch. It's like, if you're going to call yourself a grappler, you can't do just jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? But a lot of people, like I'm a history nerd, so I nerd out on the history of martial arts. So that takes me down, different rabbit holes. But it's like I have an understanding of different rule sets. Like I had lunch with Higa Machado a few years ago when I was out at a Eric Paulson camp, and he was saying like when he was growing up, it was just grappling. It's like they would do all the different tournaments and they would spend a couple weeks working for that rule set. He's like, it didn't become Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu till they brought it here. And it was sort of marketing. Over there, it was just grappling.
Yeah, put butts in the seats, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we were seeing it evolve, right? People hadn't seen jiu-jitsu before. They had definitely seen wrestling before.
Yeah.
Right? It's interesting, like now even you're seeing a transition to what's happening, even in the UFC, like jiu-jitsu isn't winning the match anymore, right? You got to be able to strike, and you got to be able to wrestle. You got to be able to truly wrestle, grapple. So I'm wondering if we're seeing a shift in that. We're certainly seeing it in the fight game.
Yep.
But is it transitioning over into the commercial space and in the law enforcement space? My guess is it will never do that because of the speed and the violence that actually happens there. I mean,
it's like. You got it's the hobbyists, right? I mean, it's like you got people that are really good at jiu-jitsu, but they can't throw a correct 1-2 combo. You know what I mean? It's like they have no clue how to throw a proper punch, and they're just like, I don't want to get punched in the face. I'm like, well, real fights start standing up. You know what I mean? It's just like, but they want to stick with what they're good at. It's just instead of going out and seeing what's possible, what's probable.
Which is the interesting thing about here, which is what was mind blowing to me when I kind of met John for the first time and a couple other guys. But John started to break it down for me in conversation because I had a lot of questions about it. Right, I'd done a little bit of jiu-jitsu, not enough to say anything about, but I did wrestle. And so when I did get on the jiu-jitsu mat, what was very tough for me was obviously exposing my back. Like this is just not what I don't want to be here. I want to be on my feet.
Yeah.
Because any fight I've ever been in, to your point, I've worked a gang unit, so I don't know what that's like. But I've seen a few things and been involved in a couple of things where it was on my feet, and anytime I may have been knocked down, tripped, hit with beer bottles, whatever the case is, and been knocked down, the last place I wanted to be was on the ground. I always wanted to get back to my feet. So going back to Mikey today, and kind of what he was talking about, I was like, I need to be, here's my 3, priorities that I'm getting through, one of which is I need to get back to my feet. I want to get back to standing, create distance, and be able to reapproach the problem if that's what needs to be. If I can't get control, if I can't get on top, right? Which were his other 2 priorities. I believe I have those right. Sorry, Mikey, if I'm messing those up. I know being on top was one. I'm not exactly sure what the first one was. I listened to a lot of information today, but going back to John, how he was explaining it to me, and again, going back to the hierarchy, the sport versus the actual application in a violent encounter. Can there be some stuff used? And I think most people that have been doing jiu-jitsu long enough are certainly going to fare better, probably in a street fight, even if they can't punch, if they're going to be more skilled than the other guy. So in that sense, going back to your metric about what works, that seems to be the answer for people because that's what they know, because they just simply have more skill than the other guy and likely more confident in that skill. So it goes back to your equation of like what helps you be successful on the street?
I think a lot of the stuff that's being taught to LE though, as far as jiu-jitsu goes, is it's also building false confidence.
Okay, let's talk about this.
Because everything works in a mat room. But if you go to some 44-inch wide hallway in a crack house that's, you don't even see the floor because of laundry and everything else, like a lot of that stuff's not going to work. Like I've taken some like world champion jiu-jitsu guys from the mat room out between the Connex boxes of my property, and that space even changes the draw stroke.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, holy crap, this, now my Uchimata throw isn't no longer there.
So the mind expands a little bit.
Well, the thing of it is like, yeah, you're really good in the mat room, but now you go out, you're in between two cars in a Walmart parking lot. Now you don't have the space to make that work. So now you're going to go to like the panic mode because it fails and you don't have a solution where to go. And that's where you see people transitioning to a higher level of force. That's not necessary, right? It's like I said, a lot of this stuff that I see through social media nowadays, it's like, yeah, he can make it work because he's a black belt. But the 30-year detective that's only going to train their show, they can't do that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. It's I call it like, look what I can do.
It's crowd work.
Yeah. It's like, look what I can do. It's not hey, let me show you what you can do. Like I build my whole curriculum with cops, and I tell the guys in my classes, this material isn't for you because you train. It's for the guys that you have to go back and teach next week.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Approach. Yeah.
It's like, it's for those guys. I want to teach you something where if they only show up for their 4 or 8 hours once a year, it's going to be something, if they get in a use of force in a parking lot leaving your class, it'll work for them. It's not going to be some move that requires you to be a purple belt to pull off. And that's what you see a lot on social media. It's like, I look at stuff like, okay, that'll work because you're whatever level jiu-jitsu guy, but put on duty gear, get in a confined space, and you're not going to have the room to do that. But it's like everything I teach and like the courses I make is for the guy that the people in the class has to go back and teach. It's not for the people in the class.
So compare and contrast that to like what you're teaching this week. We talked about the vehicle extraction thing. I'm going to come back to that because I have questions about this. But the other course section that you're teaching this week is more, what do you do in terms of control in a weapons-based environment? Yeah. So we're bringing, as a civilian or an officer, if I'm armed, right, whether with a blade or with a firearm, I'm bringing something to the fight. So there's variables there, and or whoever I may be in a confrontation with also has the same one or both. Yeah. Right. So how do things change, right? Like, so what are you, maybe just break down in the Reader's Digest version, like what does this look like?
So like a weapons-based environment, I tell people like, I never go for head control. Right. Everything I do is focus is like, even the vehicle extractions is focused on controlling hands and hips.
Okay.
Right. It's like, I don't do anything takedowns that require me dropping below the belt because that leaves your hands free swinging. And I don't do anything like clinch work. Like
it leaves the suspect's hands free swinging.
Yep. So they can access whatever's on their waistband. Right. So
that rules out a lot of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. So everything is upper body control.
Okay.
Right. I don't like go into, and I love Muay Thai. I've been doing it since the 80s, but I don't go into any plumb clinch because clinch range, your peripheral vision is non-existent. So you can't see their hands doing anything. So it's always about, arm ties, hand ties, controlling the hips. And it's just, the vehicle extraction is the same.
I was just going to say,
concepts.
So I didn't get to see that today because I was over here setting up and I'm bummed that I missed it. I wasn't going to be able to make it back in time. But I should know you get a lot of questions about this, and this was kind of an impromptu thing. It wasn't actually on the schedule, so people are like, "Why am I going to Combatives Summit to learn vehicle extractions? Yeah. This is not something I would ever do in life, or whatever. Why would I need to pull somebody out of a vehicle? Well, maybe you can make an argument or concoct something. However, this happens very frequently, particularly now. Like it seems to be happening at an exponential rate. People don't want to get out of the car, right? For whatever the reasons are. They don't want to go to jail. They just want to be ornery. They want to have an argument. But ultimately, now you're going to jail. You will come out of the car. So this seems like a practical thing to know, right? And so you were basically John had asked the group, hey, if people want to stay after, Cliff's going to go through this hour kind of demonstration, which is what it was. It was kind of a show and tell, right? It wasn't really a training, so to speak. Right, but let's talk about this because I see, I don't see a lot of vehicle extraction stuff on the internet, right? What I do, I have seen a little bit of it, but I don't see a lot of it with regard to the crowd work stuff or like, look what I can do perspective. However, what I do see is a shit ton of body-worn camera footage where this is a problem. And there's all kinds of things. There's officers getting into cars with people, trying to get them out. There's 3 guys wrestling one fat lady, you know, trying to get her out of the car. There's a lot of this going on. So maybe talk about this a little bit because I don't think I have a very good understanding of it.
Yeah, so like I told him tonight, like vehicle extractions is one of those deals. It's low frequency but high risk, right? So and that means it's like they're not happening every day, but when they do happen, it's high risk, and it's high risk not only to the officer's safety but to his career because it goes sideways really freaking fast. But it's like talking about you're still controlling hands and hips, and a lot of stuff you see on social media is it's tactics you would never use clearing a house, right? Okay. You know, and people they argue all the time, and I'm too old for it, but it's just like, you know, they swear up and down like, oh, we pressure tested it in training and we pressure tested it in the real world. Like, sure, I can send you 10 videos to prove what you're doing is a bad tactic, right? So that's really, you have to assume every time you go hands-on, like for vehicle extraction, it's a weapons-based environment because the officer's bringing at least one.
Right.
And you don't know why they're refusing to get out of the car, right? So everything I teach, like I said, is controlling hands and hips and dominating that space between the steering wheel and driver's seat. And then that sets up your extraction.
This other stuff. Yeah.
So everything I dominate, I basically turn their spine offline, which locks their hips in the seat, but I have control of both hands and hips. You know, like hands access tools and hips is what generates power, right? I don't use the B pillar for anything because that leaves the inside hand free. And, you know, I don't use, you know, a third person coming in the middle to get the inside hand because he'll never beat the draw, right? And it's just like I demoed tonight. The guy comes in and gets, you know, the guy has my arm against the B pillar and he comes in to get my inside hand, I just punch him in the face. You know, it's like, if I can touch your face, I can punch your face. Like, you know, it's like, it goes back to, I hope you comply. Like anything works unopposed. You know, it's like a lot of the tactics we saw in when the GWOT kicked off, right? It's like we were training CQB in peacetime environment. And then you go over there and now you got, you know, some Haji barricaded with a PKM. You know, it's like, oh shit, we're gonna have to change our tactics.
Yeah, it's theory. You know? It's theory being passed down. Yeah, versus
you know, it's like you see. I've seen BJJ black belts teaching striking for cops, and they don't know how to hold mitts. They're sitting holding mitts looking like Mickey Mouse ears. Like, dude, you're gonna get bad elbows after about 6 months of that.
Yeah, I know.
You know, it's a lot of theory-based stuff out there instead of just going like, okay, maybe I don't know everything. You know, let's just, you know, like I said earlier, let's just put in mouth guards and see what works.
So that's one of the interesting parts it's the most interesting part to me about the summit in coming to this is because you're getting all of these different perspectives. Nobody is claiming it's been pressure tested in the street, so to speak. There's testing going on constantly, and it's through what you said. It's in somebody's garage. They're throwing in a mouthpiece, or it's somebody's gym. It looks weird to the outside world, and they know that about it. And they're totally okay with it. Their feelings aren't hurt, you know, by that at any level. But what they're doing, the reason they're doing is because they've applied what was taught to them at some point or seen enough of it being applied to know that this isn't the right solution. So how do we fix this? And what's ended up happening here in Mississippi, where we're sitting, is you have people from all over the country coming in here. So these are people that are already very committed to training. They've been committed to training their entire life. It's not like This has just showed up for them in the last couple of years. No, there's not anybody instructing.
Yeah.
Like when they go through instructor bios, you're talking 30 years of martial arts, several years maybe of law enforcement. There's law enforcement officers here. There's law enforcement like advanced training units, defensive tactics, instructors here. There's Joe Civilian. There's guys like me who have limited experience on any of this stuff. It's a pretty
diverse group.
It's a very diverse group. And what you have, again, going back to who's teaching, again, the most interesting part is that while there should be, like from the outside looking in, a bunch of arguing and carrying on, and my technique is better than your technique kind of thing, there's none of that.
Yeah.
There's literally none of that.
Yeah,
and there's no debating even going on. Which shocked me when I came because that's what I was told it was going to be. But I was like, "There's no way you're putting all these dudes in one room, and there's not going to be a fight, right? Like there's physically or verbally or whatever else." I wonder how that happens because, like, where do you have to get to, like, at your point in your life and your career to be comfortable doing that again? And I think I know what the answer is, but I'm going to ask it. I'm asking it anyways.
Yeah, I really think it. Well, you have to realize that everything in combatives is just a way. It's not the way, right? But it's like, if you do this long enough, you all come out to the similar answer. Like, you might explain it different, but you're still saying the same thing. And even like high level guys that are there, I mean, much higher level as fighters than I am, but it's like, we all like agree on how to handle like whatever the problem is, but it just comes from years of, let's just punch each other in the face and see if it works. You know what I mean? But most people don't want to do that.
Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about.
And that's the one, I think.
It's way more comfortable to not get punched in the face.
I think a lot of the problem nowadays too, it comes from social media and the whole hero worship thing. It's just like, I know I've had a ton of guys like, oh, I need to go to the Combatives Summit. Well, you do, but you won't, because whoever is your Instagram Jesus, and it's like, it'll be disloyal to him, like his preaching. You know what I mean? It's like, but that's the problem. It's like when you suffer from hero worship syndrome, like you'll never truly see what's possible. It's because you just take whoever your hero is, you take their word for it, and it's good enough. And then you're just like, well, he said it was pressure tested. So yeah, it was pressure tested. Like, no, it wasn't.
Just because he knows more than you and can do it better than you.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. It's just like, you'll see a ton of people. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to go to that, Matt Petrenka's class. I don't need that GM stuff. Like, well, he was also a tier 1 dude.
Yep.
So he can argue both sides, but it's like, they don't want to know what's possible. It's like, it's got to be ego. I don't know what it is, but it's like me getting back into competition shooting. It's like, I'm close to 60. It's like, I want to know what's possible for my beat up ass. You know what I mean? It's like my knees hurt after 6 stages. It's like, I'm taking brown water and copious amounts of Aleve. It's like, I still want to know what's possible for me, and hopefully being a broken old dude, like it inspires a 20-year-old or whatever that's just starting out. Like, oh, if he can do it, I can do it.
Well, you certainly see that in those environments, and you see that here. And again, going back to, I think a lot of people what may create hesitation for people coming into, again, exploring what's possible is a lack of confidence.
Yeah.
That in and of itself, again, I just go back to my own story on the pull-ups. Like that was the motivator for me. Like I know I'm not confident in this, so I need to change that. And the only way to do this is to step into the uncomfortable, right? And it's I tried to make this clear, when I did this thing last year with so many of the guys. I mean, you're walking into a room with savages, right? And there's a certain percentage of people in there that are absolute savages. There's a certain percentage of people in there that are like, I might be, but I'm not quite sure yet. I've done a lot of things. I've been punched in the face several times. And I recognize that there's other things out there, and I don't mind getting punched in the face to learn something, right? And then there's certainly a smaller percentage of people that are like, I'm really not sure. Like I'm kind of walking on eggshells, around this. But still, they're willing to come in and do the thing. And what they end up recognizing is they don't have to be the savage yet.
Yeah.
Right. That may not even be a goal.
Yeah.
Right. It's just, I know there's some things I need to explore here. And I think that's the missing piece. Like if you just put yourself out there a little bit and went, well, let me go to the BJJ school.
Yeah.
Like if that's the answer for you right now, if that's what's successful to you, just go do that, right? And figure some things out. When you build a little confidence, maybe you'll move to the next step. But they want to do, the other part is I don't think anybody came here, and I don't know this to be certain, but I don't think anybody came here hoping to do black belt shit.
Yeah.
Right? What they came here to do was, I don't want to hear about the black belt shit because I hear and see it all the time, and I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
Not yet. Like, I'm working on it, right? I'm going through my journey. But I also recognize there's a lot of things that those black belts aren't doing that I'm seeing that I know to be true. Like these things happen, and this doesn't seem like the right solution for me. I have no desire to do the black belt shit right now. What I want to know are, what are the, again, going back to your hand control and hip control. How do I do that part better? Because that'll help my jiu-jitsu, right? And then slowly move the needle first, like shooting. Like, no, you're not going to be a GM, right? Nobody's asking you to be a GM, but where are you in your journey, and what steps do you need to take at least to move the needle forward a little bit? And if you don't do that, you will never know. There has to be a point where the wheels have to come off a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, you go to a driving course. If you never hear there's like the tire squealing, you're not going fast enough. You know what I mean? It's like, you're never going to know what's possible as far as performance goes with that car. But like, this is like, the summit's like really cool. Cause like, you weren't there for the vehicle extraction, but afterwards I had a female that's here. She pulled me aside and she's like, hey, I had this happen. Can you work with me tomorrow about how not to get pulled out of the car? So I'm like, sure, we're going to do that on lunch
interesting.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Interesting. So again, just a different
totally different lifestyles, right? But I thought that was pretty cool, so we'll be doing that tomorrow during lunch.
during lunchtime.
Yeah. So like,
it's solving problems.
Yeah. It's problem solving. That's all it is,
Again, going back to just kind of how this whole thing comes together and specifically this, we could talk specifically about the summit, but it goes way beyond that, because this is just the place everybody gets to come, one time a year or whatever, and all be in the same room together or whatever. I just wonder about, like, you said this at the beginning when I said I didn't know a lot about you, because you don't say a lot outside of if you're in front of you, right? And to me, it was a tough place for me to be, because I'm like, I don't even know, like, I got to be around this guy. I don't even know what to ask him. Like, I don't know much about him. But you are out there and you are talking to people pretty frequently. I mean, you've already dropped some names of people that you've gone and trained with or whatever. But just to encourage people, right, that maybe are more like you. Like, I'm not really going to talk about this like publicly. Like, you clearly enjoy training people and seeing the light bulbs go on and whatnot. You give a lot of your time. Yeah, you're probably too generous at times. You've probably been guilty of that, quite a bit. I'm sure the wife is not entirely happy all the time with the time you spend away and how you're doing it, and how much money you are making doing it or whatever else, right? For the time away. But I just want to, like, in terms of encouraging others, they're listening to your message, or they're listening to the message of, some of the folks that you hang out with and corroborate with, or collaborate with, sorry, in a sense. Where do they go, man? Like, because again, they have their Instagram Jesus, right? And then they have their school that they go to, and that's what they know. But they're looking for other answers, and they can't come to the summit for whatever reason, or they're just finding out about it. As an example, where do they go? How do they do this? Like, for you, it was a different journey, and they're much later in the game than you were. You started at 6 years old wrestling, right? They're not that guy. They're not that lady. How do they do this, man? Because I think I think there are a lot of people that want to do this, and they recognize they're all on an island all by themselves. At least they feel that way. Yeah. How they change that?
Really, it's like, for me, it's like, I tell people, you got to lay out, like, what is your goals? You know what I mean? And then develop a training plan around that. It's like, you're really looking at being a jack of all trades, master of none. That's what they used to tell us in recon all the time. But it's like, you want to be good across the board. You don't have to be great at everything, but don't do your research. I tell people, dude, word of mouth is the best way, right? It's like, if I see somebody talking about like, oh, this class was awesome, if I know them, I'll call them like, hey, what's the real deal in that class? That's how I pick my classes. I don't go anything off of social media because, I'm not one of them, but the majority of people won't say anything negative about anybody on social media. Like if something sucks, I'm going to tell you it sucks. You know what I mean? It's just the way I was raised. But yeah, just like find out like what do you see being a problem like in your life? You know what I mean? And how fixes your goals? You know what I mean? Like, it's like now me not being LE, it's like, do I really need to be a competition shooter?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to put hands on way more people, than I'm ever going to shoot now.
Mm-hmm.
Heck, I put hands on a homeless dude in Starbucks last year in Houston. Some crazy guy came in, but it's like, so what is your longevity goals? I tell everybody, like, you should really look at your health and fitness first and foremost. You know what I mean? And then from there, start looking at, how comfortable you are putting hands on people. And then look at, medical, like it has to be like, it's the whole gamut of stuff. It's like with the medical stuff. Yeah, I'm paramedic. I think my stuff's still good. But anyway, it's like I got my paramedic license, right, years ago. And I actually worked for a local 911 company in 2020 as a medic. But, it's like everybody, like, if they talk medic, they're thinking about, like, oh, stopping the bleed, right? It's like, dude, it's way more than that. Like, I was walking to Walmart last year with the wife to get some stuff. And there was an old dude just sitting there. And I'm like, I told the wife, like, and I started talking to him, like, he's having a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
But most people don't understand
they don't recognize.
They don't recognize the whole FAST acronym. I mean, they don't know how to test for a stroke. Like people are just walking by him. It's like some 80-year-old dude with the Vietnam hat on. It's like she was like, "Holy crap, how'd you?" I'm like, "Well, you see his like facial drift," and I started telling her, she's like, "I would have never recognized it." But people are so focused. Oh, stopping the bleed. Like, dude, you're not a gunfighter, bro. Like,
right.
learn. How about you learn CPR?
It's so refreshing. You just validate a lot of like you'd asked me before I hit record, like what how did this whole podcast thing get started, and most people have heard that story, so I won't retell it. And you already have too, but that was me. Like what you're talking about is me. Like the health and fitness side handled, even a good amount of the medical side handled. I actually had quite a bit of training in that, directly and indirectly. Through my life and career, I had some experiences that, I was in a gym and somebody died, right? Like some dude fell off a spin bike and had a heart attack, and that woke me up. I was like, I should probably be better. Like I had my CPR certification because we were required to have that or whatever. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like I know the stuff. I've done it. I tick some boxes and I got my little card that says I'm good to go. But man, I haven't practiced that. Like I haven't really done anything, to make me feel more confident. Like if that happened again, could I be, could I have been more help? Could I have done something? I guess my point being is the podcast started for me is because I recognized like I have some things that I'm not the best at any of it, right? And I'm not trying to be the best at any of it, but I have these skills. But I found myself in a situation where I had a firearm, right? And if there was a time in my life where something was going to happen, at least at that point for me, like I recognized this could be it.
Yep.
And what have I done and what have I not done? And it woke me up. Like I was like, oh my God, like I'm not a law enforcement officer, thank God. Like, and that didn't happen for me out on the street in an incident where, my life could have been taken. My point being, it forced me to look at things and go out and start training and put myself in environments. And when I put myself in those environments, I recognized my own problems, but I also recognized other people's problems, which was very interesting to me. Like, man, that's not a thing for me. Why is that a problem for them? Right. And then you start to look around and go, well, that's kind of a common thing. Like that kind of exists here. And I guess the point of it is maybe I need to do a little less of this and a little more of that, going back to the shooting thing. Everybody's got all in, like on competition shooting. Great, man. If that's your hobby, that's cool. But there's all these, you're not a gunfighter, man. So what is this about? Like I have this goal and I want to achieve X. I love that. Like keep chasing that. But what are you leaving on the table, dude? Like you're you're 100 pounds overweight, right?
Yeah.
You smoke a pack of cigarettes a day and you eat like an asshole.
Yeah.
Like maybe take a little of that energy that you're dumping in over here and you put it in over here. So the same thing would exist like on the jiu-jitsu side. Like you're really good at jiu-jitsu. All right, well, you're a 3-stripe white belt. Maybe you're not that great, but you know enough jiu-jitsu, right? You know 90% more jiu-jitsu, 99% more jiu-jitsu than the guy that you're probably going to approach on the street. How is your striking, right? How is your medical? You know, how is your, you know, your wrist and your hand and hip control?
And every area is different. Like I was just talking to a local deputy. Like he always checks on the family when I'm out of town. But there was a medical emergency out where I was. I'm like, well, okay, like the ambulance was able to take care of it, but do you know what you need to call Life Flight? He's like, no. I'm like, you have no idea the size of a landing zone they want. He was like, I have no clue what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're looking for a 100-meter diameter, you know, nothing over 3 feet tall type deal. He's like, I never knew that. I'm like, dude, it's like myself, my wife and I, we've called in Life Flight for our neighbors like 3 different occasions, you know, and we cleared our property for Life Flight, you know, a piece of our property. But he was like, I had no clue. I'm like, well, you work out here, you might want to figure out areas where you can land Life Flight.
Yeah, it's just you're mailing it in, right? Yeah. You're kind of showing up. And again, I think this goes back to hope.
Yeah.
Like, well, you hope that the people that show up know what they're doing and they have access and all those other kind of things. That wasn't a good answer for me. And that was my thing. Like, what was my hope in that particular situation was during 2020 and the George Floyd riot stuff. And I was like, dude, even if I called, you know, I needed help, they're busy doing other shit right now, right? So like I had left so many
things on the
gaps, and things on the table. It really bothered me. And again, it goes back to like the pull-up bar. That shit bothered me. Yeah. Right? And it drove me to make decisions and explore things and go out and look for help. So, and what I got from John was there's all these other people out there that are doing things. Yeah. And not all, but it's a blanket statement, but there's a lot of Instagram Jesuses that think you're weird, right? For doing what you, for even the things that they just heard you say, like, dude, we're not doomsday here or whatever. Like, we do jujitsu. That's what we do, right? Like, but they think you're weird. And so for me, it was like, this is an interesting, and I said this to John when I at the dinner table, and he's like, what do you mean by that? So it's kind of an interesting subculture, right? And he said, well, what do you mean by subculture? I go, well, there's this whole weapons-based entanglement phrase, right? That goes on. I'm like, and I stopped. I kind of stepped back to think about that. And I go, but interestingly, it shouldn't be considered that at all, especially if you're a law enforcement officer, because you're bringing those things to the table. And anybody that's walking around with a blade or a gun stuffed in their pants is also in one of those 20, for as long as you're walking around the street with a gun or a blade stuffed in your pants, you're in a weapons-based environment now. And you should assume that the other dude is too, or other people are too. So what is stopping you from even thinking the right way?
Well, you know, it's like the way I look at my training too is like, you know, now that it's just, I look at myself, I'm my wife's protector, right? So how can I provide the best service for her, right? Because my goal is to live one day longer than her, right? That should be a man's job, basically. So like, what do I have to do to achieve that? You know, so I need to have firearm skills, medical skills, you know,
fitness,
right. You know what I mean? All those things, like, you know, and you just have to come up with a training plan. You know, it's like, but if it's just a hobby to you, you'll only do it until you find a new hobby.
Yeah, I think the other part is people want to farm that out. Yeah. They want to put their plan in somebody else's hands. And that could be a very good place to maybe start, right? So that you can learn a few things to start to take some personal responsibility and accountability to developing your own plan. And you don't have to know it all. That's the whole thing. Yeah. But the interesting part about, again, we're going back to finding solutions. It's the same thing. Interesting what martial arts will teach you about finding solutions too, to problems, right? Like, and how to work through those. And that includes the grit that it takes, right? The mental fortitude, or however you want to phrase that. It's interesting how that all comes together. But I think what I picked up there was there's a deeper reason for all of this. Matt Larson would call it, what's your mission? Yeah. You know, kind of thing. And you very clearly articulated that. That is something you can root strongly to, right? Yeah. So what am I doing today, right? How do I plan my day? How do I plan my training session? What did I actually get out of this? And that's really what this whole thing has been about. And again, like the strategy to what you're going to be teaching, tomorrow, which I'll get to see. But like what is the plan here? What's your plan? What are you going to do? Like, I'm going to do jujitsu. Yeah. I'm beating that up a little bit. I have no room to do that in my life, based on my skill set, but you're going to do jujitsu. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Right?
But it's like people, they gravitate what they want to be good at.
I'm going to do the shooting.
Yeah.
Right?
Whatever they want to be good at, they'll gravitate towards that. But they don't want to do what they suck at. It's because like, me as a black belt, like if I partner up with a lower belt, I always ask like, hey, what do you want to work on? And they're like, I just want to roll. And I tell them straight up, like, okay, you're always going to suck or you'll quit, right? Because you'll get frustrated from sucking, But I tell them, like, if you come to class 2 days a week and you pick 2 things you suck at and you're like, hey, I suck at escaping mount. Can we start from there? And they come back on Thursday, hey, I don't know how to defend a back take. Like, that's 2 things a week, 8 things a month, 96 things a year you're getting better at. But if you just want to show up and roll, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
So
it's super interesting as those glasses. We're going to talk about the glasses just kicked on there. Yeah. But I think, again, going back to like I just want to roll.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense at the beginning. Like I remember when I first started, like, that's all I knew to do.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know what I didn't know. So it's like, I guess we get down and we roll and I figure this out as I go. Right? But you have to start that process to then know what you suck at, because if you don't have that, like, how do you know you're getting better? What are you marking as a win? Like, if you're just sitting here to roll today and you're validated based on whether or not you choked out the black belt or not, well, that's a pretty poor place to come into training today.
But it's also like what you see going back to law enforcement too. Bad tactics lead to good shootings, but they'll validate that shooting as a win instead of looking at bad tactics. It's just like if you read a book, you remember the last chapter, you don't remember the first chapter, right? So nobody, like, they'll look at a police video and they'll go like, oh, that's so awesome, but they don't look at everything that happened before what happened. Mm-hmm. So their training never evolves. Yeah. It's like, oh, that's a win. Like, no, it wasn't, dude.
It's kind of a low metric. Yeah.
Yeah.
So go back to the vehicle extraction thing real quick, because I think one of the questions I had for you on that, and I want to make sure I get it answered, is, again, from my perspective from the outside looking in, just a dude looking in, like, this seems like a pretty valuable skill, right? You said it's pretty low frequency. I'm saying from my perspective, and that's what the algorithm's feeding me.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing a lot of it. There's a lot of people getting pulled out, or there's a lot of wrestling matches in the driver's seats of cars right now. But what I heard you say is, like, people want it. Like, it seems like I think they're looking at it from the same perspective as I am. Yeah. In particular, I would be, if I was a law enforcement, like, I need to be good at this because I'm making vehicle stops on a regular basis.
Yeah,
right?
Every day,
right?
Yep.
So it's the propensity of that is very high. Like, that's going to happen. So stats are, like, numbers will tell you, if I do this enough times, at some point that's going to happen. And basically the end result of most of what we see, and this is always happening with these situations, like, you always see the bad stuff. It turns into a problem. What you're saying is like, people are telling you they want to see this, right? And then it's like, oh, we need a class on this, and then okay, well, then let's do it. I'll come up and I'll teach the class, or I'll come to you and we'll do this, and then 5 people come.
Yeah.
Like, what's the fucking problem, man? Like, what is the disconnect here?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is like, I did a class for Bexar County Sheriff's Department there in San Antonio. 5 guys showed up, but just before that class, a week or so, they had a San Antonio guy get drugged trying to do a vehicle extraction. Mm-hmm. And I met some of his coworkers at a pistol match, and I'm like, well, he can come to the class for free, And
he didn't show.
He didn't show up. So it's like, and I'm sure his coworkers made excuses like, oh, you don't, whatever it was. I don't know. I just like, I give them one invite and I don't care if they show up. I'm too old to go out and try to recruit people to train. It's like, you either want it or you don't, is the way I see it. But like I said, it's like, when I did the vehicle extraction class up at Grapevine, there was 30 dudes,
Why?
Because obviously they're to me, it's a way busier place. So, you're doing 20 traffic stops a day versus 2.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I don't know if that's really the case, but I think a lot of it that I see just based on driving by traffic stops where I live is it's a lot of presumed compliance.
Presumed compliance.
Yeah.
They're going to do what I tell them to do.
Yep. It's like the whole small town. How dare you defy my authority?
Because I have the uniform, the badge, and the gun.
It's like funny story. It's like when we were teaching my son to drive, in my town, not turning your headlights on is like a felony stop. So he's driving. I'm sitting in the back seat behind him. My wife's in the front passenger seat. He gets pulled over because he didn't know the headlights weren't automatic. But the cop that does a traffic stop walks up on the driver's side, and I tell him, I walk him to the track, roll down all 4 windows, blah, blah, blah. And the dude is doing a traffic stop. He sets up midway on my window. His holster is literally like sitting on the windowsill. And I'm just sitting there looking at this dude.
It's an easy take.
I could just rip your gun out of your holster, you know what I mean? If I was an asshole, it's like, but that's the whole presumed compliance thing. Like zero tactical thought behind the approach. The interview is just, it's all presumed compliance, nothing. And then, but that's what you see, all the backpedaling, like, it's like whoever came up with the retreating bill drill, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, and somebody posted it, I'm like, you should call that the presumed compliance drill. Because you go into like where it came out was a call. Dude was seen at a school with a gun, right? And they get the address, however, from his license plate. They go, he walks out with his hands in a bathrobe. Like he could tell by his elbow flare he's holding a gun. But they're just like, it's like they're talking to the guy in the front yard like it's a barking dog call. And then that's when the backpedaling comes up.
I've seen this video.
Yeah. It's like I tell people, like if you use the American car analogy, right? It's like it's faster to go from 60 to 0 than 0 to 60. Mm. So you should go into every call at 60. Like you should be mentally thinking, I'm going to shoot this person. If that doesn't happen, great, we're going to fight. If not, here, press hard, 3 copies. But everybody goes into the mindset like, oh, this was another day in the neighborhood. That's why you see people falling down and doing goofy shit,
Press hard, there's 3 copies. Got it. Yeah, I think that's that's kind of what law enforcement had turned into at some level, people breaking the law, they were just getting a citation and walking away. It's been an interesting change of culture.
Well, the big thing too is people blaming on admin.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I guess where I was going with that is there's still laws to be enforced, right? Yep. And when that happens, by nature of the word, there's use of force that's in what you're saying is you should presume that every call is going to have that at some level. Yeah. If you got to put handcuffs on somebody, it's use of force, right? You got to, got to pull your gun, it's use of force. Got to pull a taser, it's use of force. Whatever the case is. Yeah. And I don't want to call it lackadaisical. It's more like they're just hoping that it doesn't go that way, and it's less than that. Like they're not expecting it to go that way at all.
The thing is, everybody's like, admin. I'm like, how many people have you talked to that's been in not only a use of force, but a fight in general, and you're thinking about anything that's going to happen tomorrow?
No.
You know what I mean? You're thinking about like what you need to do right now. Yep. I've never, and all the uses of forces I've been in, and it's been a bunch, I never thought like, gee, I wonder when IA is going to call me for this interview. Mm. You know what I mean? It's like, it's giving direction on how to get this dude into custody. It's not like, oh my God, it's going to be so detrimental to my career, But people will like use that to justify poor skills.
That's a good point.
It's like, okay. It's like, they told us in the academy, you were looking for a job when LA hired you. You can look for another job. Do what you have to do. Hmm. It's like, and that's the way it was in the 90s. It's like ask, tell, make.
Yeah, they'll the internet would say you're an old guy, and that's the way they used to do it. But it's the same. I heard what you said.
The job's the same.
Because if you believe that to be true, go back to like it's no different. If you believe that the new generation is a thing, whatever that is. And I there's things that come along with that, for sure there are. But when you're talking about percentages of people that came through that probably shouldn't have been there in the first place, how many people get weeded out, what ultimately happens when they hit the street, you know, through their FTO programs, and who's actually successful and how are we measuring that success? What you've told me is it's no different. And I think that's an argument. Like people are making that. It really isn't any different. So if you believe that to be true, then you also have to believe what you just said. Right? You know, on the admin side, like you're making excuses. I think that's a very strong point and a very strong argument. Look, man, I mean, I could talk to you for hours, and we literally have been. Like, there's a lot of stuff we talked about at dinner tonight that I really enjoyed hearing, you know, about your story and kind of your upbringing. I think it really set the tone for me understanding kind of who you are, and you covered that in brief at the beginning. I'm sure you've told the story a million times. I don't want to try to drag it out of you again, but you know, everything from blue collar upbringing, wrestling, from, you know, competing at a very young age, right? Being Marine Corps drill instructor, moving into the LAPD, working in a very specific unit, which gives you lots of action that provides you these experiences. To me, that may have been a little bit more common in the 90s, as you've referenced so many times, versus now there's definitely much less of that. And but I guess my point in saying all that is like it is a little bit of a different breed. It's not a bad thing. It's just it's a little bit different, and you're coming at it from a different angle. And what I appreciated from you, I learned more about you probably in the last 15 minutes of the summit last year than I did the rest of that time. And that was just how you addressed some questions from the audience. There was a panel or whatever. And I'm like, this fucking dude's gonna say whatever is on his mind, and I love that about him, right? And I think people are gonna hate you for it too, right? They're not gonna like that, but I appreciate it. And there'll be some people that listen to this that go, "Fuck that guy," right? And I know you don't care, right? And there'll be other people listening to this like, we need more of this. Where do we find more of that? Like, I wish I had a guy that I worked with that was like that, or I could have these kinds of conversations with. And so if listening to this lets them know that they're normal, right? Or they're a little bit more, there's other folks out there, and that, you know, if people want to get, you know, some more of Cliff Byerly in their life, right, with regard to training or questions or recommendations or things, like, I know you're very open. I meant this before because I've seen it. I know it because I've seen it. Like, you're very generous with the knowledge and the giving information for people that really want it, really want to work. Again, going back to the person that's coming back tomorrow at lunch, you're going to give up your lunchtime to work with them or whatever. If they want to reach out to you, man, or if they want to look into you a little bit more for however much longer you're going to do this before you're like, I'm done. I'm done not sparing people's feelings anymore. I'm just going to move on with my life. Where do they go, man?
Easiest way to find me is on Instagram.
Okay.
You know, either Cliff Byerly is my personal page, or Hill Country Combatives.
Yep.
It's the easiest way to find me. I took down my website. Okay. You know, it's like now all that training is pretty much by request.
Yep.
So
that's how you get Cliff in your life. You got to ask for it.
Yep. Just got to ask for it. Yeah. We'll make it happen.
Yeah, I love that, man. I appreciate your time, man. It's late. I know you got.
That's awesome.
We got long days tomorrow. A long day tomorrow, and then even the next day on Sunday. And like, man, I'm always appreciative of people's time, but I'm super appreciative of yours, because I know while you are generous with it, like, it's important for you where you spend it, and the fact that you sat down and you just kind of shared your thoughts.
It's been an honor.
Honesty. I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'm looking forward to seeing you in action tomorrow. I only caught a little bit of it last year because I was trying to do too many of these in a short period of time. So here we are, and I'll definitely get up there and check you out. But man, thanks again. If there's anything I can do for you, Cliff,
appreciate it.
Huge fan, probably huge fan, bigger fan now, and I'm happy to do it for you, man.
I appreciate it, Scott.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks, brother.